The countryside of northeast England is littered with the derelict remains of lead mines. Some of the more complete remains are being restored by councils in partnership with voluntary organisations. One such restoration attempt is being made at the Nenthead mines. The conservation organisation advertises on its website about times of opening and what's taking place on the site, including tours of the mine, etc. You can imagine the frustration of would-be visitors after travelling quite a few miles, arriving at the mine to find its amenities closed to the public. However, one can walk round the deserted property. The local population pass on information that the society has run out of money. Walking about the grounds of the mine, it is obvious that any attempts at restoration has been abandoned. The staging about these water wheels has been restored. Since this visit, however, it is understood that restoration has begun again. Good news. The water channels have been cleaned up and ready to allow water to flow to the water wheels. It looks as if this section has benefited from a clean-up in preparation for restoration. Bits of machinery has been left everywhere to rust. The mine itself is in a state of preservation, and apparently tours are still in operation with groups of people booked in advance, but the price is not cheap. The miners who worked here and in other local mines were fervent supporters of the local Methodist churches and chapels, so it only seems natural that a visit to such a chapel is in order. This is claimed to be the oldest Wesleyan church in the world that is still holding regular services. It was founded in 1760 and is located at Iris Hope Burn in the county of Durham. This is John Wesley, who, with his younger brother Charles and a colleague, George Whitfield, is credited as the founder of the Methodist Church. He was born in June 1703 at Epworth in Lincolnshire, at the rectory that stood here and where his father, the Reverend Samuel Wesley, was the Church of England rector. John was born the 15th child of Susanna Wesley, who went on to give birth to a total of 19 infants, of which only 9 survived. When John was 5 years old, their home caught fire, and as his bedroom was in the attic, no one could reach him. John leaned out of the window and was rescued. From then until his death in 1791, he believed that he had been saved to do God's work. In 1726 he went to Oxford University, and in 1728 he was ordained as an Anglican priest. At Oxford, he, his younger brother Charles, and George Whitfield formed a club which was mainly religious, and they were chided by their college mates for being overly pious and methodical in their daily practices, and so they became known as the Methodists. Although John was an ordained priest of the Church of England, he was not allowed to preach sermons from the pulpits of the Anglican churches because the powers that be thought he was too radical. So he had no choice but to hold meetings on the streets. He became very popular with the lead miners of Durham and Northumberland. He is remembered by the monument on the quayside at Newcastle upon Tyne. Despite the intolerance shown to him by the Anglican church leaders, the Methodists remained within the Church of England until after John's death, when the Methodists split with the established church and prospered. In 1735, the Wesley brothers and their colleague George Whitefield went to take up positions in America at the invitation of the governor of the British colony Georgia. Charles was engaged as the Indian agent, and John as a preacher to bring Christianity to the native Indians. They both became embroiled in scandals of a sexual nature. Charles was pursued by 2 prostitutes, and as the governor disapproved of this behaviour, Charles was sacked and returned to England in disgrace. John was sued by Sophia Hopkey, who he met on the ship travelling to America. She accused him of breach of promise. She claimed that he had proposed marriage, and after taking advice from an Indian bishop, he suddenly stopped seeing her. He escaped from Georgia before the case was resolved. George Whitefield stayed in Savannah, Georgia, and became influential in making the Methodist Church the 2nd largest religion in America. The good people of Savannah, Georgia must have forgave John Wesley, as this statue was erected after his death. In London, the main Methodist church has a statue of John in its forecourt. Back to the chapel, and once inside, it is noticeable how plain and devoid of grandeur it is, so unlike the Anglican Catholic churches. Probably the most decorative part of the building is the organ. Finally, the museum has a good collection of items that the people of the mining area would have used every day, including photos of miners and their families. The collection of early photographs are of great interest, especially those of the lead mine workers and their families. This one shows the men at rest in their living quarters. And this photo shows that some miners were also farmers with small holdings. There is a mistake here. Two chapels claiming to be the oldest still holding services. Yet one was built in 1759 and this one, adjoining the museum, was built in 1760. The old grandfather clock reminds us that it's time to go, and a fitting way to bid goodbye is to look at a picture of the death of John Wesley, a much-loved man who altered the lives of so many people.